Who wrote the Torah? Jews and non-Jews have offered a variety of logical, textual, historical, and structural theories to support their answers, with no hint of consensus. Shalom! I'm David Benkof from Jewish Culture 101 with an abbreviated version of my Introduction to the Hebrew Bible session, part of my Judaism 101 course. Let's consider 5 approaches Jews have taken to help determine who wrote the 5 books of Moses: Revelation, multiple text theory, historical logical thinking, Bible codes, and literary analysis. Obviously, it's a crucial question, since the God of the Bible makes demands of the Jews and others. If the Torah is literally divine, people ignore its mitzvot at their peril. By contrast, if human beings wrote the Torah, some of its more challenging aspects, from stories like Abraham's near sacrifice of his son, to laws about slavery and homosexuality, become quaint, albeit interesting, relics of a Jewish past that has no claim on us today. Now, historically, the main approach to the authorship of the Torah is revelation. Orthodox and some other Jews believe the Torah was delivered to Moses at Mount Sinai largely intact, a written reflection of God's commands. The second major approach has been the documentary hypothesis, that the Torah was originally 4 or more source texts, which were weaved together, perhaps by a redactor, to make the document we have today. This theory dates to 19th century Germany, where its innovators were trying, among other things, to demonstrate the spiritual illegitimacy of the Jewish community. The theory was nonetheless a valiant effort to explain inconsistencies in the text, including double creation and double flood stories, and the use of various names for God. The polar opposite is the Kuzari principle, based on the name of Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's 12th century philosophical work. This historical logical argument, often presented as proof positive of divine revelation, asserts that revelation at Sinai must have occurred because hundreds of thousands of people supposedly were there. If it didn't happen, how could their descendants believe in it? There would have to be a generation in which people would unanimously agree to adopt a lie they would pass on to their own children. There are weaknesses in the Kuzari principle as well as the documentary hypothesis, but those are the most ambitious ways of justifying belief or non-belief in the divinity of the Torah. Then there are the Torah codes. Just like tarot cards, these are an overwhelmingly debunked and broadly disavowed system, but they are still promoted by some Jewish outreach organizations as proof positive of the Torah's divinity. By skipping equidistant letters, properly trained computer programmers can find hidden messages in the Torah, including predictions of the future, like this word search-like structure supposedly predicting 9/11. However, the predictions are always retrospective. The men trained in Bible code prestidigitation never correctly predict things in the future. Also, for Jewish groups promoting it, Torah codes are much more a fundraising and recruiting tool than a legitimate spiritual endeavor. If it was legitimate, they'd be teaching it to their own children, which they don't, and making it central to the curricula of their yeshivas, which it isn't. Literary evidence, though, can point to single authorship of the Torah, which would debunk the documentary hypothesis but not prove revelation. The complex literary structures in the Bible suggest a unified work, for example, chiasms. Like palindromes that work the same backwards and forwards, cross over the various supposed source texts. It seems far-fetched that a redactor would create complex structures in a work that is jerry-rigged from several other sources. It is more logical to believe that there is one author. Personally, I tend toward believing in single authorship, but I'm agnostic about who that author was. What do you think? Who wrote the Torah? Put your comments in the notes and I'll respond. Every Monday I offer a free online class, Jewish Culture 101, which looks at the contributions of American Jews to literature, Broadway, art, film, music, and television. See links and info in the notes. And for more videos, press the button to subscribe.